guys. Look, I'm here with my longtime friend and good mate, Katrina Ruth. I've known Katrina, gosh, for like over 15 years now, something like that, from back in the days when we were both PTing within the fitness industry. Since then, she's gone on to do amazing things. She's known as one of the most badass business coaches in the world and helps women from around the world really kind of empower themselves, find themselves, and grow successful businesses within their own right, just like she has. So,
Thank you.
Katrina,
Thanks,
welcome to the
Daine.
show.
Thank you so much for having me. And that was an epic intro. So nice to have an intro just from a perspective of someone who actually knows me as well. It just adds that little something. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, look, I could still remember us training
Oh
together
my
back at the
God.
old Clean Health and
I
attending
cannot see a
workshops.
sled
You
without
know,
thinking of you. And I'm not going to say it's entirely fondly. But yeah, no.
I definitely I remember those days. But look, obviously you and I go way back. But for those guests out there that don't know who you are and haven't heard about you before, do you want to give us a little bit of insight to who you are as a person and I guess where your position
Yeah,
is
for
right
sure.
now and
And
what you're
I'll
doing in
just
life?
preface by saying feel free to cut me off anytime because I tend to just go off on a thing and 20 minutes later I forget the question. And yeah, so
That's all right.
I founded essentially an online education company which I began in its first iteration about 15, 16 years ago. So back in those PT days when we were all just starting to venture into different things beyond the gym. And bit by bit, I sort of navigated my way to what I, on a deeper level, what I'm going to say on a soul level, always knew it would be. Long before I could articulate that, even back to when I was a little kid, I knew this was what I was here for. And so I really feel like I was always working towards that, even through the fitness days and just all the different ups and downs of life. And what that was and what it is I'm a author, speaker, success mentor, coach, revolutionary badass, whatever you want to call it, for the driven
I love
women
it.
who are
I love
here
it.
for more, who are called to something greater than their own humanness, and who flat out refuse to do business, money, and life in any other way except for what excites them and what they believe in, and essentially on their terms. So my company, the Katrina Ruth Show, we're in over 120 countries. We have clients and customers. We have literally hundreds of different courses, programs, workshops that you can jump into, kind of like an online university. So, you can study along at your own pace. You can jump into something live with me. I have a small group of private clients who I work with personally, one-on-one and intimately. But predominantly what I do is I educate, empower, activate and kick the ass of that self-appointed 1% within the 1% human who just knows that they're here to make millions, impact millions, change the world, honestly, and have a damn good time doing it and do it on their terms.
I love it. And I mean, I think it's as you've gone across that journey over the last 10, 15 years, I can even, just from knowing you that long, I can see just how clear the conviction is with your mission. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, male or female, getting that clarity on firstly who they are, what their mission is, what they're passionate about is going to be the ultimate driver towards being successful
Yeah,
in
I
whatever field
agree.
they're in.
And gosh, I just have so many positive, powerful, amazing memories of that time when, you and I and various others were just so in it within the fitness space. And I just think the fitness world is such a great filter or kind of like funnel for those amongst us who just refuse to live an ordinary life. And it just, for me, that was such a critical time of honing in discipline and resilience and tenacity and, connecting into that deeper drive. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of put that.
It's a great stepping stone, and I think three of the core pillars that I have in my business is balancing out your family, so your family and your relationships, your physical fitness, and not just your physical fitness, but your mental fitness, your spiritual fitness, your emotional fitness, and then your finances. And I'm a big believer that to really master the financial game, if you will, you need to really get clarity and focus and success in those first two places to do it long term. So talk to me a little bit about kind of your journey in that space and the women that you work with, like what are two or three of the key things that you find with a lot of the clients that you're working with that are stopping them from really stepping into, their higher self, their higher
Yeah, I
purpose,
love
and really
that
achieving
question.
big things?
I identified this very clearly about 7 years ago. It was during a period where I was transitioning in my online business. So I'd come online in 2006. I was a personal trainer. That would have been probably, yeah, around the time we were kind of connecting and doing things together in different ways. And I just came
Yep.
online with a website to support my personal training business. I certainly had never heard of online marketing. It really wasn't a thing at that point in time, anyhow. I really just thought if I have this website thing, whatever that is, that it's going to help me to look more professional as a trainer. And I was hoping that it would help me to position myself in some of the big corporations as their in-house, sort of come in and do seminars and work with their teams. And that's what happened. I was connected through various clients into Credit Suisse and BHP and different companies where I kind of came in and positioned myself as that high level trainer and expert and speaker as well. And so from there, I built the fitness business, and I was one of the ones who was pretty early on in fitness in Australia to be selling fitness products online. I built that business to a multiple six-figure per year business,
You
kind of
were.
without knowing what I was doing. You certainly didn't see trainers everywhere selling anything online. In fact, everyone was coming to me at the time and asking me to teach
No.
them and show them how. But I knew that I love fitness. Gosh, I'm never going to stop loving fitness. But I knew that that wasn't my true calling to be teaching or educating on fitness. And even within what I did as a trainer, and I was a very well-known and high-level trainer, and then positioned my brand through magazines and my website and whatnot, I always just wanted to speak to people about, but what are you really here for? And what really excites you? And, what is it all about for you? And I would just have my clients crying on the couch, and they're like, I thought we were going to do squats. And I'm like, we'll get to that. We need to dig into this first. So my point
Well, I
in
think
saying
that's
all of
that's
that
one
is
thing a lot of
I
people.
knew that I was here to share around purpose and alignment, and also making money and making a big difference in the world and doing it on your terms. Yet I, like many of my clients to this day, didn't feel good enough for that, or I felt like, who am I to do that, and how do I do it anyway? Like, what does it even mean? And I also had some coaches early on and mentors who literally said to me, you can't do that, that's not structured enough, or it's not tangible enough. And this speaks to my answer to your question, which is there are two key things that stop women, and I'm going to say also men, stop driven humans from really stepping into their purpose, their truth, and also making real money and a real difference by doing business and life on their terms. And those two key things, which I identified through about 110 personal conversations that I did in a 2-week period from the W Hotel in Leicester Square in London in 2014. And I really kind of identified it then in those conversations with people, and it's never changed. Number one, people think that their thing that they want to do is not tangible enough. It's too airy-fairy. I'm not really sure. I know that I need to get more clarity. It's not structured enough. That's the first thing. And number two is permission. People think that they need to, I don't know, somehow get some sort of laminated certified certificate from somebody
Yeah.
that says you're allowed to do this. So what I do is I come along and work with you, whether it's individually or through my group courses, memberships, my digital mastermind, whatever it might be, and say, hey, no, the thing that you feel inside of you is real. You actually do know this on a deeper level. It's just that kind of like surface talk or being human AF or whatever you want to call it that's telling you that's not enough. You do know you have enough to get started. Clarity is on the other side of action if you want more clarity. And it's not about, is this tangible enough within the constructs or so-called requirements of an industry or a niche or your coach even, or your partner or a group of people. The thing you feel is the thing, that is what people need. And it's about you backing that and operating from that in what you do, rather than thinking you have to operate towards an idea of one day being more whatever. And that leads directly into the permission piece, which is the permission to be you, and to be you in business, and to make money doing what you love and on your terms, and with all your randomness. Like I have, as you said, one of the most well-known premium success and business mentoring brands in the world. I mean, look around. This is my office. This is a commercial space which I purchased a little ways back. This does not
I love it.
scream professional in a corporate sense, and nor do I. but yet I'm the most professional person out there, if you want to call professional, doing the work you're meant to do and getting people a result. And you've got to realize that permission is something you acknowledge within yourself, and you do it based on who you really are, not on a version of yourself you think you need to be in order to be approved. And so permission is something you were born with. It was signed, sealed off on before you even got here. You got to choose it.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that was beautifully put. You know, I think the permission and the action component of what you just said is so important, because I think so many times, you're right, like people have kind of put this subconscious barrier on what it is they're meant to do or what they can achieve. And it's like they're waiting for a freaking God to come in and say, you can go do this now. And by the time that happens, which, side note to everyone listening, it's not going to happen. He's not going to come down and tell you that. You know, you could have started a business, launched a business, and actually be, you know, working
100%.
towards what you need to.
And I love that you said that, because something I've said for years. Oh, do you know what? Do you think we got this from Charles? I think I got it from Charles. It's like, what do you think that, I don't know, a Vestal Virgin is going to come down from the mountaintops with a scroll and deliver it to your door and tell you, you know, here's permission to live the life that you want. I think I kind of morphed that.
Here's permission.
Yeah. No, you choose it. You say yes to it.
But it is, and I think, you know, the unfortunate thing for a lot of people is, you know, for whatever reason, they take on projections or whatever it is from their parents, their family, their friends. You know, I've found, and I don't know what your experience is with this, that sometimes, you know, to become the person that you want to be, sometimes you need to almost, you know, shed the skin of what has been passed on down to you in many respects. And for a lot of people, that could be quite comfortable, you know, family, friends, these people that are meant to love you and support you and, you know, have that unconditional respect and love for you, looking at what you're doing and you know, especially for women, I think it's even worse than men. And, you know, kind of almost sometimes saying it, but sometimes just through their actions or behaviors, kind of not really supporting that process. Like, I'm sure you've seen some of that with your clients before and stuff like that. Like, what advice would you give to women in particular that, you know, whether it's cultural projections, societal projections, or even family projections in regards to how they should approach that when, you know, for example, they're working as an accountant earning $100,000 a year. They wake up every day not passionate. They've got this itch that they know down here they need to scratch. They want to go out and do this completely random thing where they're not dressed in a suit anymore, where they're sitting in an office like what you've got right now with the graffiti in the background. It's all very different to what they've been brought up with. Like, what is your recommendation to those people out there?
This is so important. I guess a lot of people look at me and do assume that I just kind of rolled out of the womb with this level of certainty and confidence and quote unquote badassery. I remember somebody even said to me once, she kind of acknowledged that this was silly, but she still said it. I can't be as successful as you and be a badass online because I don't have tattoos. And I was like, okay. She was sort of joking, but sort of not.
Go get some if it makes you feel better.
The thing is, and you would know this, I could, once I was comfortable in an environment, like in the different ways that we sort of met and knew each other and circles we moved in, then I could come out of my shell and get to know people and shoot the breeze or whatever. But I'm a huge natural introvert. I was the school square growing up. I was literally, and I'm not making this up, the most uncool girl in school, at least till my late teens. Well, that was kind of the end of school. Maybe by the end, the rebel vibe started to kick in a bit. But I come from a family that is very, I guess, proper, very traditional, very Christian family, extreme Christian upbringing, very intellectual family. And I was, an introvert. I was the school square, shy, top of the class, teacher's pet, you know, quote unquote, the student most destined to succeed at university and traditional life. And yet what happened? I somehow blew all of that up. Like, I got the grades, I got into law and all. And within weeks of being at university, I just knew I'm not going to do this. And it was terrifying for me because it was a huge void. And like, my whole life had been mapped out, you know, to be this high-flying lawyer. And at the same time, though, I was very blessed, unlike many people who I work with, in that I did grow up in a family where I was filled with positivity and belief from my parents and affirmation that you can do anything. And, you know, my mum would say, if she was the one being interviewed, like, we always knew Katrina could do anything and she'll do whatever she decided to. And I got that fed into me from my parents and my teachers. So I was lucky. It was this weird kind of dichotomy, though, where on the one hand it was this is the expectation. Like if you got an A plus, no, sorry, if I got an A, it would be, well, what went wrong? Why wasn't it an A plus? And the whole thing was about normal, intellect and success. But then on the other hand, yeah, I did get this messaging the whole time of, well, we always knew you were going to do what you want anyway, and that you can. But I have many friends and clients who grew up on like the wrong side of the tracks, or had, really devastating, horrific, traumatic childhoods, very unlike my own beautiful, fortunate experience, who also have gone on to claim what's inside of them. So here's the thing, and what I say to my clients, ultimately it's about who you are as a person and what you know is true for you. And unless your spouse, neighbor, mother, best friend, dog next door is this sort of person embarking on this sort of way of doing life and has created results and success doing this sort of stuff, meaning following their own flow and fire and breaking all the rules and being who they are, then they are not qualified to give you an opinion. Now, that's maybe a little harsh. I don't mean that people shouldn't take on board. I definitely encourage people to, have those conversations with their spouse or partner in particular, I guess, but anyone who's important to them. But ultimately, only you can know what is true for you. And for me, no, I didn't really have people saying you can't or shouldn't do that. My husband, as I started to really go into what I do now, was concerned though, pretty concerned about money, but like supportive at the same time. I haven't personally experienced the thing that many of my clients have where they were actively like told or pushed down or made to feel extremely wrong or anything, but I've certainly coached many people through this. And the way through it is always, 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 but you just keep saying yes to that next little move or sometimes big move that you know is true for you. You don't need to roll out and decide you're going to go and make some visual, over the top shift or change in who you are. Like anyone could watch my videos from over the years. I started online in 2006, but I started doing video maybe around 2014 or 15. You can see how much I've changed and grown and just stepped into my true identity throughout that time. You can literally watch me grow into my, identity as a woman, I suppose, but like badass leader, coach, etc. I was, like quiet and shy and not well put together. I didn't have the hair and the stuff going on. I usually just made these little videos out of the gym in a dodgy car park in the Bahamas or wherever I was at the time. But you could see that fire and that truth there. And the thing that I did that I encourage people to do is I did just keep saying yes and making moves that I wasn't ready for. And, I don't know to what degree that was nature as opposed to nurture. I think definitely a little bit of both. But I guess I figured out at some point in the life journey that you don't need to feel ready or know how in order to make a move. But what you do need to do is to sit your ass in the chair anyway, so to speak. Put yourself in the position and life will step up to wherever you draw the line. So why don't you just keep moving the line a little bit?
Yeah. And I think what you just said there, it's one of the keys of manifestation. It's, people have a thought or a dream or an intention over here, here it is being realized, but they don't put in the daily steps or forward momentum towards that. They get sidetracked by it, or they get told by someone else that, oh no, that's silly or stupid, and they don't keep that linear process towards it. Which I think kind of tying in with what you said about breaking the rules, and I think definitely to the conventional wisdom in many respects, people would say that of you, which leads me to your marriage. Now I know you've been married twice to the same man.
You froze for just a moment. Back again.
Can you hear me? Oh, I was saying you've been married twice to the same man.
3 times married in total, twice to the same man.
Right. So this. Oh, so you're beating me. I've been married twice, 2 different people, but twice the same man. But I think obviously, look, that is fairly unconventional. So talk to us a little bit about that. Like, what kind of on a relationship standpoint, a lot of people are of the mindset like once you're done, you're done. In marriage, for whatever reason, you guys have been able to come back to each other a few years later. Like, talk to us more about, I guess, your mindset and approaching that, and maybe to other people out there that have gone through breakups, maybe offering them some glimpse of hope
Yeah,
that
so
maybe that
it's
could happen for
funny.
them?
I get it, especially when we first got back together, which was after nearly 6 years apart. So we were properly divorced. We do have children together, as you
Wow.
know, and so we were certainly still in each other's lives. But when we first got back together, which was at the start of last year, and it was very like it wasn't like I was sharing all the details of that on the internet. So as far as my online following and community knew, it was like, holy shit, what just happened? But even because they've been there with me through the journey a lot of the time, I have a personal brand, so people know quite a bit about my life. Not everything, I suppose, but even for us, it was very whirlwind. It happened. It was kind of like it was the curveball that I always knew was coming because it came out of nowhere. But on the other hand, on a soul level, I think I always knew this. And I got a lot of messages at the time and still do, like, basically asking for advice or, like really being inspired by our story. But then I also have very many messages like, like good for you and so happy for you or whatever. But that could never happen for me. Like, holy shit, no way. My ex and I can't even be in a room together. So that was us though. Like I don't like to use the word hate, especially on camera, like it's recorded, but I did not want to be in a room with him. It was a very messy, nasty, hurt-filled, tear your soul and your heart and all your skin off your body sort of ending to our marriage. It was traumatic. It was like traumatic for the kids. They saw stuff they should never have seen and heard, and it was horrible. Like it was everything you can imagine, a horrible breakdown or marriage, especially with kids involved, to be. And I'm sure many people can relate to that. So there was freaking no way I was entertaining an idea of getting back together.
So how were you both able to heal that trauma? Because I think, like, to give you a little bit of insight, like, my wife and I, we went through a rough patch a few years ago, and I always knew when we got together, I always knew that she was the person that I would spend the rest of my life together. We'd had that. It was just a instant connection. I knew we were going to be together, but we went through a period where her personal growth and her philosophy in life was here on one side of the pendulum, and mine was on the other, and we just weren't connecting, even though we had that deep love for one another, just on the practical element, on a day-to-day. At least in this case, I wasn't meeting her at where she needed to be met. And so fortunately for me, she kind of supported my journey to get on the same wavelength with her, and we were able to work it out. But we were at a point where we were like, both of us were like, hey, like, I love you and I can't imagine life without you, but this isn't working. So like, how were you able to get through that? Because I think, for a lot of people out there, like, your relationship, the home, it's the foundation
well, we
of
weren't
everything
trying to. Firstly, it was a definite split. We went our own separate ways. We both dated and met other people and whatnot. I definitely was actively trying or hoping to meet someone with a view to a serious relationship. He wasn't so much. I think he was more, in a conscious sense, knowing that, or he never stops loving me. I was more like, well, that's not enough. Love is not enough, that sort of thing. And yeah, I don't think I would have said I ever stopped loving him, but it was like there was too much hurt and pain on the top of that for it to feel relevant or aligned. And so I was, actively like dating and hoping and wanting to meet someone for a serious relationship. He was much more removed and just kind of more so keeping to himself, but definitely still meeting people and whatnot. We were not trying to come back together, but something we did quite early on that I do give us credit for, which was really hard, is that it was probably a few months afterwards when the initial dust cleared. We did sit down, we had lunch together, we cooked lunch together, and we basically had a meeting about how we wanted to co-parent together and laying down, like our values and our vision for what it meant for our family moving forward. And for me, one of the most traumatic things was feeling like I'd destroyed my family. It was my choice to end the marriage. I remember just sobbing to somebody, I think a counselor of some kind, I've destroyed my family. And she said, Katrina, you haven't destroyed your family. You're still a family. It's just in a different format. And I took that to heart. And we actually did a really fucking good job. I hope I'm allowed to swear. We did a really good job of working together for a higher vision of how we wanted to parent. And it was like, people would say, oh, I couldn't do that with my ex. like it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. We were so messy together, like so much just triggers and like hurt and nastiness and reactiveness and whatever. We really worked hard to still have some moments at least. And, you know, it's not always possible, but for us, it was about putting aside our own stuff, and we did things together, and maybe like to a point where my close friends, because years passed and we would go on little road trips together from time to time with the kids, or even weekends away, and like it got to a point where some of my close friends kind of like not told me off as such, but sort of like, well, are you sure that's the right thing to be doing? You know, like it's weird who goes away with their ex-husband, and
Mixed messaging and
yeah, like you're keeping yourself sort of tangled in that energy or whatever. And there would inevitably be, you know, blow ups occur on these trips as well. But then we would work through them. And what's funny now, like I just feel like God had his hand on all of this, you know, because I look back now and I'm like, well, we intentionally, like widows, put ourselves in a position of having to continue to deal with each other. So we weren't trying to move forward on our marriage, but we did, as a result of that, move forward on our ability to communicate with each other in our relationship. And I remember maybe 3 4 years.
Oh, communication is so
I
important.
think 3 or 4 years into all of it, I started to realize, like I was over the whole bit of I never want to have to see you even though I'm choosing to see you, and whatever, and I just started to feel annoyed. And what I was annoyed about, like, was not at him, it was just at the situation and at both of us, like annoyed that we'd screwed it up so badly. And I did feel annoyed at him for sure, but at myself as well, where it was almost like, this is so annoying because this is not what it was meant to be, but we wrecked it. And in those moments, I
Just
felt like it
labels.
was true and irreconcilable. That like it just was irreconcilable, or I felt like it's true that we definitely screwed it up beyond repair, and only a true miracle, you know, could heal or fix this. But I wasn't like trying to heal or fix it. And then I met someone and entered into a serious relationship, which I met him right before COVID started. And that pretty much went for that whole year of 2020, the first year of COVID. And I thought, okay, I'm going to marry this man. Like, it was all in, it was all on. It was an incredible, beautiful human. And I was certain, or I thought that I was certain. And I'm going to kind of fast track that story because otherwise I'll turn it into a whole 10-minute thing. But essentially what happened is, as we led into Christmas of 2020, and, you know, Christmas, family, nostalgia, whatever, maybe that was part of it. But just things started to shift inside of me. And Enzo and I, my husband, and the kids, we always had this Christmas routine of what we do on a Christmas morning with the kids. And so we did that because we were together, and the man that I was seeing wasn't there physically. And so I was spending Christmas with the kids and with Enzo, and we were doing our morning routine. And I just remember thinking, I won't be able to do this ever again. Like, once things are really on with this other person and we're going to get married and everything, this is it. I won't be like spending Christmas morning with my ex-husband, you know, when I have a new one. And it was just this clarity moment, I suppose, where it had been building up anyway in the other relationship. Like, I was starting to feel this is not actually aligned. It was nothing bad. It was just, you know, an alignment thing. And pretty much I ended that relationship at the start of the new year. Maybe a week after that, Enzo and I went out to dinner. And it was kind of a lay everything out on the table dinner intentionally, where I brought the conversation up and I said, it's just so annoying that I can't seem to ever fully let go of you. Like, it's driving me crazy. It's so freaking irritating. And I just don't know what to do about it. And I was crying. And he's like, wow, I didn't want to say anything because obviously you're seeing someone, but I just like never stop thinking it's you, or something like that. And he said, do you want to talk? So we went to dinner.
Good on him. Good on him for having the respect.
Oh yeah,
like with what you just said there.
Like
you
just
know,
beautiful morals and principles. But we went to dinner. I arrived at dinner with 40 questions, typewritten, 40 questions. And like literally, these are my questions or my points of concern of what I feel like, how could we deal with this and then this. And he just sat there and he was like, okay. And we went through these 40 questions one by one. And I walked into that dinner certain that I would walk out just feeling like reassured, that no, I know we can't be together. Like I know that, right?
Well, you created those questions to
I
almost
tried
try
to
and
gather
self
evidence that
sabotage
it
it from
can't work.
occurring, and not
Yeah, and
yeah,
instead I walked out feeling
yeah,
hope.
yeah.
I just felt a little bit of
Mm.
hope, and then a couple of weeks passed. We went to dinner again, which was supposed to be lay out, I don't know, your concerns or whatever. And I just remember sitting at this dinner, and I said to him, "Well, do you have any concerns? That's what we're here to talk about, right? What are your concerns?" And he's like, "I don't have any concerns. Do you have any concerns?" I'm like, "I don't have any concerns." He's like, "Well, I've gone, I think we should just do it." And that's like, I've actually never told that story online or to anyone other than friends before, not just like the simple truth of it. That's all that happened. And we just made that decision. And then we started dating. Like, we weren't physically intimate. We were just kind of dating and being very kind of conservative with that, I guess. But at the same time, even though we weren't like dating romantically as such, we did recommit fully to our lives together in that moment.
It's a beautiful story. I mean, the part there about the Christmas, I was like a little bit in tears because I could feel how that would have been for you. Like, that would have been it. That whole sliding doors and stuff like that. But I think the main thing to take away from that is like, people get so caught up on labels and what is
Yes.
accepted as right or wrong or proper, and they're judging shit.
Well,
Like,
that was the
good
area of
on you
my
for
life
like
where
not
I was
giving a
worried
fuck.
about what friends and family
And
would think, because they'd seen it
yeah,
all. They knew the extent of the hurt and the trauma and the pain, and it was
yeah,
real. That was where I was scared of. And people, a few people did come at me, a few people close to me. Mostly people were super beautifully supportive about it, and just, which kind of shocked me because they knew stuff. But mostly people were like, "I see the journey you guys have gone on and the work you've both done separately on each other, and like, just, love you and here for you." But a few people close to me were pretty essentially shell shocked and just not okay with it. And I think even now are still not 100% okay with it. So, yeah, like, but for me, it ties into what I teach in business, because even when I made the decision from my part to say yes, and obviously I can't speak for him directly on that, for me it wasn't like, there was still all this stuff between us, and there still is. We're still navigating old hurts and pains, and like, God, we have our freaking moments, God
yeah.
knows, but we committed to our vision together, just like we did when we had that conversation about being co-parents. It wasn't that all the feelings were there. I didn't make that decision based on lust or like even a surface level of love. It wasn't there. It was a soul alignment decision of, I just, like, and this is when I put it out publicly, and I didn't tell the story, but all I said was this one line, which was my deepest truth, which was, "It's as simple as this. When I look to the future, I can't see it without you there." That's what I made the decision based on in the end. There was nothing else apart from that. In fact, there was 40 plus reasons why it was a bad decision.
And you and you've let the rest of it kind of just sort itself out, which I think, like, it's very true. I think you've got to be open to receive whatever it is the universe has in store for you, which kind of links into one of the things that you talk a lot about on your
Yep.
socials is the concept of abundance, right? And obviously being open to receive things. So do you want to elaborate on that a bit more? Because I think, even for me personally, I've been at stages in my personal and professional life where, I placed these
Yeah.
ceilings on top of my growth without even knowing it. And it wasn't until I really identified that, like, in some case that I just wasn't open to receiving that. When I realized that and cleared it, it kind of allowed me to go to that next level. So, like, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think what you just shared, we're never going to stop doing that, right? We're going to be human, and we're going to continually notice, oh, wow, look at that way that I was limiting or restricting myself, or I was playing out an old story, or I was, convincing myself something's not possible. That's the journey of being human, or one aspect of it. But the cool thing is, when you have the level of awareness that you have, that I have, and, many people listening are obviously choosing into their lives, then at least you notice and you can call yourself out or forward on that. And for me, that's what it's about. I think the concept of abundance, manifestation, intentionally creating your life, people get into such attachment around these things, and what they do is they create the exact opposite energetic environment within themselves that they're, getting excited about or hoping to create. And so then there's kind of like an attached, scarcity based, like vigilant, rigid like yucky, needy energy around,
Lack.
am I doing it right? Like, am I doing manifestation right? Or like this holding on. And, the thing is, when you truly expect life to go in a way that is true for you, well, no, you don't expect there not to be ups and downs or hurts or whatever. But fundamentally, big picture, you just have a belief system that what you see or what you're shown inside of you is available for you. That's an abundance mentality. By definition, if you're then seeking to go and like get it, grab it, bring it back to you, like find it, like, it's the freaking ring in Lord of the Rings or something, then what you're doing is you're pushing it away. You're defying that required belief system that it is available and that it's already yours. A true abundance mentality is relaxed. It's already yours. You know that there's as much as you need whenever you need it. You're not like, okay, I've got to get it now. You're not like, I've got to go on a fucking mission and figure out how to get it. It's just like oxygen. You can have as much as you want whenever you want. It's just freaking there. You don't need to try and grab it, hold on to it. And you also don't need to be getting into like, am I good enough? Am I worthy? And all this stuff that obviously we do. And, many of my courses help people to move through this stuff. So it is part of it. But overall, the way that I see it is this. Whatever you're shown is yours. It's available now. So my, I guess, personal approach here is all I'm doing is saying yes to what I'm shown, the fullness of the vision of what I'm shown. But I know that I'm always going to be shown something more the next day or the next time. And then at the end of this year, as with any or any moment in time, I'm going to look back and go, oh, like look at all those ways that I wasn't acknowledging what's there for me. Okay, well, whatever. Don't make it mean anything. Just be with what is now, with what you're being shown now, and understand that if you're being shown, then it's for you, and it's also available, and it's also available now, not in some mystical, non-existent future time, but now. So then your mind is like, okay, but what about this and what about that? And I don't know how, and you don't understand this particular thing about me. No, shut up. It's available now. Circumnavigate the how. And this is a choice, to live this way, to live with a belief system of, I get to have what's for me in the way that it is aligned for me, meeting, my personal values and desires and whatever else. And it gets to me now, okay, well, I can't see how, or what about this, or I might not be good enough. No. Well, what if you just put that aside, go and address it, get coaching on it, jump into my programs, or go and get that healed with, whoever you need to work with separately for its own sake, if you desire to, or you feel that it's true for you to do so. But don't make that relevant to whether this is available, because it is available now. And the more that you just go into that relaxed observation of that, and almost like practicing an assumption that, well, of course life gets to step up for me in this way, then the easier it gets. And then the only action you need to take is to come back into the moment, into the now, and basically, okay, cool, what is the true move for me to make right now? Like, bring it from the vision back into the here and now. And, you can call that manifestation conversation. So many great creators and leaders and coaches and just successful humans talk about this in their different ways. Like, I like how Gary Vee talks about it. He just calls it the clouds and the dirt. He's coming at it from a very pragmatic explanation, not bringing, I guess, the woo into it, not in the way he says it, at least. It might be in his head, but he says, like, it's just the clouds and the dirt. Like, what is up there, and then what are you meant to do right now? And honestly, that's all it is. That's all I keep doing. Like, for me, I call it the vision and the now. Same thing, right? Like, what is the vision? What am I being shown? Yep, thank you, yes. Definitely. I'll say yes. Not my job to know the in-between bits. Go from the clouds back into the dirt. What am I meant to do right now?
And I think that the problem with it is people try and control it. They try and control the process, and they don't just accept what it is. I think that the point you made there in particular about just circumvent the how, forget about that. Just feel into it, know it's there, and it'll work itself out over time. I think was beautifully put. Kind of linking into that, like, how do you kind of integrate that philosophy, and then obviously your training background and stuff like that? Like, how do you bring, people talk about daily routines, morning routines, weekly routines, like whatever. When people ask me about that, I just say, like, look, I don't really have one. I just have a lifestyle. This is just how I live my life. And I happen to integrate these different tools and things into it to present the best version of myself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually every day. Like, what are some of the things that you do yourself to kind of keep yourself, I know when we were speaking offline before, you're like, you get to the afternoon and you're shitty, you just want to get on your Stairmaster and,
Yeah,
punch
so
out some energy.
I am
What
a
do you do?
pretty disciplined, routine-based person in one sense. Like if somebody was observing me from, like the external, they might see that, I guess. But how I feel is like I'm just totally going with the flow each day, making it up as I go, and I really just do what I want or what I feel is true for me to do is probably the right way to say that, but it is what I want. I have habits that are long ingrained that I chose into at various points throughout my life that, as you said, have just become part of my life. So I'm very, in a relationship with my fitness and my way of taking care of my body, both with fitness and various other, areas of self-care. I see these things as I'm in a relationship with my fitness and my body. I'm in a relationship with my husband. I'm in a relationship with my kids. I'm in a relationship with my money,
I like
like
that.
my actual wealth building, and then also how I make money through this and other businesses as well outside of this, and so on and so forth. So like in your relationship, I'm just in tune with that area of my life and I'm doing what needs to be done. I mean, for me, I pretty much just not like I do just know what I need as and when I need it. And I think that when you're in a true relationship with your own body, your soul, your spirit, your intuition, etc., then you're being told all the time what you need. Any human who says, "Oh, like I don't like my body's never telling me I need fitness," for example, if they were to say that, or I don't feel that pull, or it doesn't feel like something that's really for me, it's like, okay, all right, well, sorry, but you're in a human body. Movement is definitely in some way non-negotiable. So let's actually look at whether or not you're in a true connectedness to your, intuition and your truth, and maybe work on that first and foremost. Because no, you shouldn't have to do things you don't want to do, but are you listening to a surface idea of what you think you want? Because no, it's not mother freaking aligned for you to sit your ass on the couch eating Doritos all day and never moving. That's not true. We just fundamentally know that. So we've got an issue of connectedness to
Yeah.
intuition here. So for me, my routine or my discipline or how my days flow is very much about that. It's about my relationship with my own spirit and soul, my intuition, and I allow
Okay.
that to lead and guide me. But I do also, let's be honest, I've got years of good habits from fitness, from always being entrepreneurial since I was a little kid, from different coaches and support. I mean, I've continually just put myself in environments where I have to step outside of my comfort zone and where I draw that line that I then got to step up to. And I also, like many of us with a fitness background, I definitely get off on the push and the adrenaline and, stretching beyond myself. So maybe it's just kind of who I am, but I've very much cultivated that as well. And I would certainly continue to do so if there's, like, investing is a good example. It's not something that I felt like I knew what I'm doing with or where to start, but I really made a commitment to that in recent years. And, I didn't have a habit of it, so I kept forgetting. And then I was like, excuses and don't know what to do. And I just brought myself back to basics. Okay, well, you just make a little move each day or each week and you make a little commitment, like how you would teach someone to build a fitness habit or any other habit, and let it become part of your true nature. And that's exactly what's happened. So now that's another area of life where I've started to create epic success and results, and it feels easy. It feels like I'm just following my flow, but I definitely, gave myself some ass kickery around the habits and getting over myself to start with.
I love what you said about like having a relationship, with your body and your mind. I think it's a really good way of looking at it, because I think a lot of people, especially like when it comes to themselves, their body, how they're feeling, their energy and all that, they don't really
Yeah.
cultivate it in a relationship sense, and show it love and appreciation. And gratitude, I think a lot of self-love for our
Yeah.
actual bodies could go a long way to helping a lot of people, with how they're in a day to day. So, two more questions I want to ask. Obviously, you touched base on kids before. We've spoken obviously about kind of stuff that you do, your relationships, your business. How do you kind of, apply all of this as a mum? Right? I think, we're talking about relationships. Like, how do you apply your approach to life and use that to mentor your little ones? Like, obviously,
12,
your eldest
going
now,
on
how old is
22,
she?
as the cliches go, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, I've seen her for years, kind of, like on your socials and flying around the world with you. Like, How do you kind of translate everything that you've done in business and as an individual and impart that knowledge to help
Yeah,
kind of
that's been one of the hardest
bring
areas
up your
because I
child?
guess my control freak really came out, and I had some mummy guilt about, have I been a good mum? Was I there enough when I was building my business in the
Yeah.
early years? Yeah, and then
And you
there's
don't want
like
to
the old
project your
stuff
stuff
from
onto
my
them
family
too.
dies
And yeah.
pretty hard. Like,
Hmm.
well, if you didn't get an A plus, what went wrong? Like that still
Oh,
does my head in. My daughter's like, I'm not you. I don't care about
yeah.
what you care about. Like she's like whatever sass or rebel,
Yeah.
or badassery or defiance is in me. She's got like 7 million times, but without old school parenting disciplines coming into play that I grew up with. So I'm like, sometimes we say like, are
Yeah.
we remotely doing a good job with these kids? We're just letting them become like wild, crazy, free spirits, like too much maybe.
It's a hard one, like obviously, I've got 6 kids and it's like you, I was brought up very like by the books, be Captain America and all this type of stuff. And it's like you want to kind of, and in
Yeah,
some respects it was great for me commercially, but emotionally it was devastating, because I
right.
wasn't, at least in my case, given that emotional care. But I think with children, it's hard because like you want to give them that framework for
Yeah.
success as a human being, not necessarily in any context. But I think today's kids also are a lot more intuitive. They're a lot more in tune. They're a lot more just connected and
Yeah, I mean,
plugged into
I
life
honestly
than we
can't
were.
fault my upbringing. I remember somebody saying a few years ago something about no parent is perfect, and I literally had the thought, oh, but mine were. And then I caught that thought, and I was like, what a bizarre freaking thought. Like, do you actually think that? And honestly, like, yeah, there was things I didn't like or that I rebelled against or whatever, but I really do. Yeah, I just think I have so much respect for how I was raised, and I think it only served me. And I'm such a free flowing parent. Like, oh, okay, my kids probably don't
Mm,
think that. I think I'm such a free flowing parent compared with my mum. I definitely am, like by a million times. And sometimes I get really worried about it. But to answer your
mm,
question, what I figured out a couple years ago that's helped me tremendously as a parent is I just got clear on, hang on, like I was trying to teach them everything. I was like, I got to teach them about money, and I got to teach them how to garden. I don't freaking garden. I got to teach them how to
mm,
sew their own clothes. Why? I don't know. This is like my grandmother in my head. Like I have to teach them all these things, and we'll make a structure, and then we'll have a timetable. And I just never did it, and I felt bad all the time, like I'm falling behind. And in the end, I just realized my greatest mission is if I can impart to my children how to have a relationship with their own true self, like be in a relationship with their soul, their spirit, like intuition, as you just said.
yeah.
Like if I had to choose only two things that I could ever pass on to my children, it would be know God, know yourself. If you know yourself and you know how to be
Yeah.
in that relationship and connectedness to your own spirit and soul, you will figure out whatever you need to figure out. You want to learn, look, my son actually is like a prime gardener and has an excellent
Mm,
veggie garden that I certainly didn't teach him, so that's a good example. But you'll do whatever you're meant to do as a entrepreneur or creator or intellectual or academic or whoever it is that you're meant to be as a parent. So I just let go of all of it. Like, not to say I don't obviously show them things, teach them things, do other things with them, but I just let go of the idea that I've got to do anything as a parent. And I just brought it back to how can I connect into them? And really, that's just time and space, like anything, rather than an idea of what needs to
mm.
go into that time and space. How can I connect in with them such that I, as best as I can, impart to them how to be in a true relationship with themselves, because they'll find their way from there.
I love it. And I think, there's simplicity in what you said too. As you were saying, I'm like, the only other thing that I would add in there is teaching them to give life a full go. But then in saying that, if they're passionate about what their purpose and their mission is
That's
and why
right.
they're here,
Yeah,
they're going to give life a full go anyway. Because they're going to be approaching every day, like, what you do, what I do right now, like
that's
technically it's
yeah.
work, but it doesn't fucking feel like it. Um, you know what I mean? Because you're aligned with what you want to do. Um, I think, look, we've covered a lot of stuff today across all different areas. So, I mean, honestly, a lot of great gems. I want to wrap things up with kind of a two-part question. Is one, what have you got in store for 2022 in your business and life? And then two, for anyone out there that's interested in what you do, what you're about,
Yep. So
where
I'm
can they
leaving
connect with
this
you
year
through?
quite the open void, to be honest. I don't have big, things to tick off, or I mean, that could change at any moment. But this year and like leading into this year has been a real time of introspection for me around how I'm doing various things within my different businesses and within life, and just kind of like where have I added too much in and created too much noise. And I just really am this year here to simplify, strip it back, and bring myself back to what, like back in a deeper way to what it's always been about for me, which is really just the kind of things we've been talking about today, connecting into my creativity, my intuition, and what's true for me, and then empowering others to do the same. And really realizing in business, like I have a multiple 8-figure business in the coaching world that has a lot of moving parts to it, and maybe too many, that I thought I needed to add in to be, like a real proper company or whatever. And after all these years, it's just this realization of it's so freaking basic. Like it's just writing, speaking, creating, sharing truth with people. Yes, obviously there's a bit more that goes on behind the scenes, but my focus for this year is really bringing it back to basics. And for me, that's around my creative flow. And it actually is intentionally around creating that open space and void to just see where I'm led this year. So there's a few cool things on the table, I suppose, but that's my big focus, kind of in all areas of life. And then as far as where to find me, I'm pretty easy to connect with on social media, on Facebook under Katrina Ruth, on Instagram at the Katrina Ruth Show. Just come and say hi, give me a follow. You'll probably get sent a free gift. And I'm in my PMs and my DMs, and despite that, I've got hundreds of thousands of people all around the world consuming my content. I'm very engaged with my community, and that's one of the things that I enjoy the most. Of course, you can also go to thekatrinaruthshow.com and jump on my email newsletter if you would like to be fully dropped into the madness.